I want to start with a story, and it actually came from a minister colleague of mine, and he was sharing something from Romans, and it says, "In everything God works for good." And he says, "I have a clock in my office, and many of us have this kind of clock. The clock actually adjusts itself to the radio signals from the atomic clock located in Fort Collins, Colorado, and it's supposedly accurate. That clock on the back wall is an atomic clock. It's supposed to change when the time changes." And he said he bought it a few years ago, and he got it at Costco for $21. But in his living room, he has a family heirloom grandfather clock, and it's said to be worth $8,000. It chimes on the hour every hour, but it usually is off about several minutes every day. Like a human being, it gets wound up and uses heavy weights to motivate its movement. Did you hear that? Like a human being, it gets wound up and uses heavy weights to motivate its movement. As expensive as that clock is, it relies on itself instead of a higher power. It doesn't have a choice, but we do. We must choose between the wound-up tension of our weight and pressures of daily life and instead rely on a higher power. I just thought that was a really good story to remind me of. Every time I look at Michael's parents, they have an old grandfather clock. And now every time I'm going to look at that and see that as, oh, that's me. that's me. I want to start out with something, because this talk today is titled just Prayer and Meditation. And I feel like every now and then it's just good to remind us all of the importance of prayer and meditation. Does anybody know what the difference is? What's the difference?
In prayer, you pray to God. In meditation, God talks to you.
Oh, that's good.
Is that kind of it?
That's close. Yes, that's good. That's right. Anybody else? I don't think there's a wrong answer here. Joyce, you said something.
We're connecting to God with our words, and in meditation, we're silencing our mind.
So in praying, we're saying words to God, and then in meditation, we're listening in the silence of the mind. Anybody else have another version that they feel? What's the difference between prayer and meditation? Well, I got my work to do, don't I? Apparently. Well, I went to the experts to find the answer for that. Deepak Chopra and Oprah. Let's see what they have to say about it. Prayer, I love that, how he just said that. Prayer is going, what? Out there, and meditation is listening in. Okay, so prayer is not going to this member. Unity doesn't subscribe to that God is out there in the clouds. God is everywhere and within. So going out there is saying a prayer out loud, but you are going and then listening. Meditation is listening in. So when you pray, you are consciously connecting with God with words or feelings. It can just be feelings. Meditation is just listening in, because there is something coming to you. For me, I don't feel it as coming to me from here. I feel it kind of coming through me here, when I can really get in that zone. Prayer is, let's go that one slide. Yeah, prayer is asking for guidance. Meditation is listening to it. That's a good way of putting it. Okay? Because sometimes when I start a meditation, I'm starting with a prayer. I'm asking for some help, or I'm asking to calm myself down. And then in my meditation, I'm listening in as to how, and usually that's through affirmations. Charles Fillmore, who I already introduced to you, is the co-founder. He and his wife, Myrtle Fillmore, are the co-founders of Unity back in the 1890s. And he said, prayer is communion with God, the most highly accelerated mind action. This is the elevated vibrational frequency where we connect with the divine mind. That's a little bit scientific for some, but I want you to know that everything is energy. We talk about that a lot here. Everything is energy, and how you are putting out in the world, you are sending a frequency, right? So Charles Fillmore is saying that's the highest form of sending a frequency out there to consciously connect with divine mind, with God, with spirit, whatever you want to call your higher power. It is consciously connecting with that by you putting the frequency out there. I'm looking at one of our healing energy practitioners, and I see the smile on her face because healing practitioners understand about the importance of frequency and how we can move energy in ourselves and in each other. Let's go to that next slide. I just love that little girl. Meditation is not evasion. Okay, you know what evasion is, right? You want to avoid, right? It is not evasion. It is a serene encounter with reality. It is a serene encounter with reality. So do you get that? It's not saying that I'm going to ignore the fight that just happened this morning, or whatever that case is. In my case, I'm going to ignore what happened this morning trying to get my grandkids ready to come to church early with Grandma, right? Yeah. And I'm going to ignore that. No, that's part of my reality. But to not have emotion about it and to stay calm and centered with whatever the reality is that happened for you this morning, right? I know that yesterday I went to use our four-wheeler and there was a flat tire. That's a reality. I get to choose how I react to that. And when you are hitting the pause and pray button more often than not, you really will get into a practice and your life will change. You won't find yourself getting upset about little things anymore. Because what good does it do? Just stirs up my negative energy field, and then I'm broadcasting negative energy. And then everybody's affected by it in the house. Is that true? Yeah, it seemed, I thought it wasn't just me, right? So going to the silence, it is so important. And it doesn't mean, and I know I keep reminding you of this, but there still are some people that think that we have to have a sanctuary or an altar in our house, or I've got to have a statue, something. No, it can be when you're driving in your car. It can be when you take time to sit on your porch or wherever you can just find to sit for 5 minutes. I know I share this often. I look like a maniac sometimes here. I'm zipping through here during the week. I'm answering calls. I usually have a headset on so that I can move and talk at the same time. I call my car my mobile office because I've got a Bluetooth and I can call a lot of congregants while I'm driving, right? And they think, oh my God, is she always like this? No. But you don't see how many 5-minute breaks I take during the day. I probably ought to track it because that's how I stay centered as much as possible. And do I go off center? Absolutely. But more than not, I don't, because I take those breaks to consciously connect with Source. And it's so important. And the longer you can give yourself time, even better. Now, my long time is in the morning. I get up before everybody else generally, and I get my cup of coffee, and I sit out in nature. My dogs are finally learning to leave me alone. It's been a hard learning curve. She's up, right? No, right? So they're finally learning when she's sitting out there that early. But wait, you hear this. This morning, I woke up at 5:30, and it's still a little dark, and I went to go and sit outside in the quiet while the coffee's brewing. Here comes Amazon at 5:30 in the morning. I'm not done. I now go in, get my cup of coffee. It's now 6:15. I go back out in the driveway. Here comes headlights again. And I'm thinking, uh-oh, that driver forgot something. No, it's another Amazon delivery and another driver. What the heck? Now, some people, that will ruin their whole morning. I was all friendly to them. They were shocked to see somebody up, right? First of all, I said, I don't want to scare you, but I don't even know why I shared that, other than that's how life is, isn't it? Yes. I look at our animal rescuer here who goes, oh, geez. Their life is constantly in flux. How many people have a life in flux? Those of you who have children, you have a life in flux. I know that because my life was in flux this morning as grandma, being in charge of 2 kids who all they want to eat are fruit bars. The silence is so important. It is experienced through the practice of meditation. It is not necessarily the absence of any sound around you, but a silence of human thought that brings peace to a troubled heart. In the silence, the whole being becomes a place of prayer, a holy temple set on a hill. There you know God as a living presence. You know and remind yourself that you are a child of God. In the silence is a holy place. You know, there's a song that came to mind this morning while I was working on this, and I've got mic number 2 here. And it just play just a snippet of it here for you. Whoop, let me turn the volume up.
In the silence there is peace. In the silence there is unspoken joy.
Take this in.
In the silence there's release. From a world full of chaos and noise. So I wait for these precious moments when I hear all that could never be said and right here.
I'm going to turn that down and just let you know that that song is called In the Silence by Jack Fowler. If you want to look that up, that's a great song to listen to as you move yourself into meditation. These are the kind of things I play while I'm driving to keep myself calm. Because as I shared with you last week, the drivers out there are getting a little crazy. I'm sure everybody's noticing that. They seem to be in more of a hurry. They're running red lights. You know, stop signs are by suggestion only. So it's just kind of crazy. So this is the kind of stuff I listen to. And, you know, think about Jesus and all of the times that he went into the silence. He did it often. You know, there was numerous sabbaticals. He went away to be re-energized through prayer, through quiet meditation, to spend some personal time with his close friends. And like many of us, he was either unable or willing to spend large amounts of time away from his responsibilities. So he maintained a wise rhythm in the midst of his busy life. Did you understand what I just said here? Okay, so what he did was he had large responsibilities out there, didn't he? Bunches of people wanted him. They wanted his attention. They wanted his healing. He was always being pulled. But he knew he had to balance. And I say this to each and every one of you because many of us, most of us, are givers. And we give till we give out. And Jesus knew that there has to be a balance. There has to be a balance in order to do the work that he came here to do. You know, when he was feeding the 5,000, if you go back and look at that story, right, everybody wanted his attention. He said to his disciples, basically, get the boat and get me out of here and come with me, because they were all pulling. And they went away. And then Jesus goes away to a higher place to connect with his Father, to connect with Source like you did in meditation. You know, he took time off when he had enough of people. Are you doing that? When you've had enough of just one person? We all got somebody in our life, or some people, plural, right? Are you creating boundaries and getting away and when you need to get away? And it doesn't mean you're rude. You don't have to do it rudely, but you can exit yourself in a polite and loving way because it's so important to take care of yourself. I could just go on and on with this subject because I learned. I probably would have been in the loony bin had I not found unity. And I really mean that. Running a restaurant for 30 years, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 7 days a week. Can you just imagine what I was like? It was crazy. And to keep balancing and raising 2 kids by myself because their dad was not there. And I really think I was probably headed for the funny farm. And I'm so glad I came here, walked in these doors, and found people who not only unconditionally loved me, smiled, and I was kind of like, what is this place? But yet I like how I feel. I really like how I feel. And learning the power of meditation and prayer. A whole different prayer. Not the beseeching prayer that I was doing for 40 years. It was a whole different prayer. And many of you have seen me do this representation because I was 40 years of dear God, dear God, dear God. And then Unity taught me, dear God. That God was right here. Right here. So I used to have to do this till I could break myself of the habit of looking out. And then once I really got it, that the power isn't this interesting? This was laying here from last week. Discover the power within. It is the first Unity book that I was given. And let me tell you, this can change your life. And it's not about poo-pooing the way you've been brought up. It's just opening your mind and heart to a possible another way of looking at the power of God within. It's not denying God. It is realizing that I am a child of God, and therefore I have access to all that is good. This is principle number 1 and 2. I am, God is, and I am. God is, and I am part of that God. So therefore, you are perfect. Therefore, you are enough. And when I heard that coming from this podium, from a different minister, I thought to myself, I sat right where you are, and I said, oh, she has no idea what I've done. She's saying I'm enough. And now I can say it and I can own it. Even when I screw up, I still know I'm enough. And I'm perfect just the way I am. and that God is not a judging God and keeping a scorecard. God's just right there saying, Kathy, how'd that work for you? Choose again. And when I really understood that, changed my life, changed my kids' life, because I found unity when they were about 12 and maybe 11 and 13, and they saw their mother change, and it changed them. And now they bring their kids here to church. And this is why I look at you younger parents, and what a gift you are giving your kids to hear week after week after week how amazing they are, just the way they are, and how loving this congregation is, and how important it is that these teachings continue out there in the world. Oh, well, man, woo! This is interesting too. I found these and I went ahead and had us order these. This is a prayer pamphlet. This is Kathy's kind of reading. Short, sweet, easy to read. It's $1.50. And it explains prayer in all kinds of ways. What is prayer? How do I pray? The purpose of prayer. How to pray. What are miracles? What's this always available thing mean? Easy read. In the bookstore, $1.50. You can't beat it. Now, I love this next picture. I kind of feel like that's what Jesus did. He kept trying to get away from them all and just chill. Just chill. Man, does that frog look relaxed? I know. I'm kind of jealous of it. Let's go to the next one. Sleep is the best meditation. Sleep. Guess what I did from age 25 to 45? I prided myself on, I can exist on 5 hours of sleep, sometimes 4. Because I was driving a school bus. I forgot to tell you that. I was driving a school bus at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, and then doing the restaurant, and then getting back on the bus, then coming back and do the dinner shift with kids in tow. There's no time for sleep. Right? Sleep is the best form of meditation. We need sleep. Marcy's taking a picture of that. That's a hint, right? Reminder, sleep is the best form of meditation. Let's go to our affirmation for this week. Got it? Let's say this together. In a time of sacred silence, I pray knowing that prayer changes things. Prayer changes God. Oh, that's not what it says? What does it say? Oh, me. Let's say it again. In a time of sacred silence, I pray knowing that prayer changes things. Prayer changes me. See, I grew up thinking I got to change God's mind so God will see how good I am, and then God's going to give me the prayer that I asked for. So it doesn't change God. It changes me. One more time. In a time of sacred silence, I pray knowing that prayer changes things and prayer changes me. Let's go back to that frog picture. That's what I want to see you spending more time doing this week, wherever that is. Namaste. The Christ presence in me truly sees and honors the Christ presence in each and every one of you. Namaste.